Hey everyone, welcome to episode 15 of GenTech. In this episode, we'll be talking about WordPress.org tips and tricks. So this video is probably going to be a little bit short, but I really wanted to give you guys kind of an overview of some of the more advanced features in WordPress that you may not be using already. So like I said, this episode is about WordPress tips and tricks. So I'm going to be going over a couple of different things. Categories versus tags and how you can use those to further structure and further organize your blog post. Google Analytics, plugins which help you extend features in WordPress, and I'll go through a quick demo just showing you guys how to get into some of those features. So if you don't already know, WordPress is a powerful, easy to use tool for creating a website or a blog. It may also be known as a CMS, which is a content management system, or a website builder, or just a plain old blogging tool. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the features in WordPress, you can check out my previous video regarding different tools you can use to build a website or a blog. So as a very quick point of comparison, there are two different versions of WordPress that you want to be aware of. So there's WordPress.org, which is what I'm talking about today. WordPress.org is self-hosted, meaning that it's hosted by you, so it requires a web hosting account as well as a domain name, which costs money. And there are more themes available, more plugins available, and more features available. And what that essentially amounts to is that there's a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to using WordPress.org. On the flip side, WordPress.com is hosted by WordPress. It's free to start, but it's very limited in terms of its features and plugins and things like that. So as I said, today I'm talking about the more advanced features of WordPress.org. So I mentioned categories earlier. Some people may not be using categories, but categories are basically a way that allow you to organize your blog post. And when you think about categories, you want to think about what the general theme of your blog post are. So for example, a general category for some of your blog posts may be family history, if you're talking about your own family's history. It may be a specific location. So if you're talking about family history in Georgia, Georgia could be a category for one of your blog posts. You could also have a category for DNA or genetic genealogy or archives or libraries. Just the general overall theme of one specific blog post. So like I said, it helps you sort your blog posts. It makes it easier for users to find content. And as you'll notice, if you've ever set up a WordPress.org website or blog before, they have a default category called uncategorized. So I always recommend to people to go in and change that category from uncategorized to whatever you typically blog about, whether it's family history or, for example, military history or whatever you're talking about. Tags are way more specific than categories. And the question that you want to ask yourself when you're employing tags and putting them on your blog post is, what details or keywords are in your content? So what if you're mentioning specific people in your blog post? Those could be tags. If you're mentioning more specific locations like multiple towns or something like that, those could also be tags that you might want to apply to your blog post. And adding tags to your blog post, again, just helps you sort your content, makes it a whole lot easier for users to your website to actually find that content as well. And it's not hierarchical in any means at all. So one of the things about categories is that you can have several different categories, but you can also have them hierarchical in a way. So for example, if you had a category that's about family history, maybe family history is the parent category. And then under family history, maybe you have specific families that you talk about in your family. And those could be subcategories of that main category, family history. But for tags, you don't have to worry about that hierarchical structure. They're just keywords that are associated with your content. And you don't have to use tags, so if you're a little bit confused about it, don't really want to concern yourself with tags, don't worry about that. I also wanted to bring up Google Analytics. I've gone over Google Analytics in a previous video, and I get into more of the nitty-gritty as far as how to read that analytic data. But as far as Google Analytics is concerned, you can also set that up on your WordPress.org website. And what it allows you to do is basically just see how your website's doing. So you can see who's visiting your website, what pages they're going to, what things they're clicking on. So you can really see what content of yours is popular to your users. And at the bottom here, I've just listed a couple of WordPress plugins that are pretty good with Google Analytics. Monster Insights is a really big one. It is available for free, and it provides you with all kinds of basic functionality to see how you're doing with your analytics on your website. SiteKit, I believe, is also free, and I think for both of these plugins, if you want more advanced features, you can always pay for their premium versions, but I found that the free versions work perfectly fine, so that's up to you. Speaking of plugins, I've just listed a few categories of plugins and plugins that I like to use frequently that I found to be super easy to use, super helpful, and just get the job done well. And of course, they're free at the basic level. So for galleries, Medulla Gallery is really great. It allows you to just set up galleries pretty quickly. You just upload your photos onto your website, and then you can organize them into a gallery and put it on a page on your website. Envira is also a good gallery plugin. As far as Contact Forms 7 and WP Forms are also pretty reliable. So you can use a drag and drop interface to create a contact form if you want users to send you emails through your website. Backing up your website is really important in terms of just general maintenance, because you always want to make sure that you have a backup in case something goes wrong. Updraft Plus is a great plugin for that, and I really like the all-in-one WP migration plugin, and it basically backs up your whole website as well as the database behind your website. As far as securing your website, Security plugin is great. It scans your website for malware. It also logs your website to see who's logging into it. So if you have multiple users who log into your website's dashboard frequently, you can take a look and see when they're logging in. And I think it also incorporates a feature where you can receive email alerts if you get any kind of malware or any kind of hacking attacks on your website. WordPress Security is also a really great plugin as well. It does malware scanning and a couple of other security features too. So let's go ahead and jump into the demo. All right, so I've just got a basic WordPress.org blog set up on my Sandbox website. So it's very minimal, so you only have one blog post, one little sample page here, but it should be enough to show you guys some of these features that I mentioned earlier. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to my dashboard. I'm already logged in, and so this is what you would see if you have a WordPress.org website. So on the home page, first off, I honestly don't really like this page too much a lot of the time because there's just so much going on. And so a lot of times I'll ignore it. But what you can do is you can actually make this work a little bit better for you by just deciding what content you actually want to see on this home page. So as you can see at the top, I have a little notification from Monster Insights, which is the Google Analytics plugin I mentioned earlier, a general welcome to WordPress thing, an at a glance box, all of these different boxes that have information. So you can actually hide this content if you want to. You would just click on this arrow here to kind of collapse this information. You can even move this information around. So say you want to view this information about activity on your website or blog, you can just click and drag to move it wherever you want. Another thing you can do is you can go to screen options at the top right here. And all of these things that are checked correspond with the boxes at the bottom here. So if there are certain things that you don't want to see, like you don't really care about WordPress events and news, you don't care for this welcome screen, you don't want to see these various things, you can just uncheck these options. And then it makes the screen a little bit more bearable to see. So you can see at a glance all the content you have, you can see anything about your website status, and if you want to create a very quick draft of a blog post, you could do that here. Now to get into categories and tags, what you want to do is go to post. Categories and tags by default are only available for posts, but you can actually set them up for pages. You just have to know how to code to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and go to categories here. And as you can see, I only have one category, which is the default uncategorized category. So what I typically do is I just go to edit to change it. And then I just change it to whatever topic I would be blogging about the most. So here I'll change this to family history. And then the slug is the URL friendly version of that name. So what people can actually do is they can go to the specific web URL for that particular category. So you just have to make sure that it's in all lowercase and only has numbers, letters, or hyphens. So you can't have any spaces, you can't have any capitalization or anything like that. It has to be URL friendly. So to do that, for family history, I would just type family history and just have a hyphen in between it because I can't have any spaces. And I don't have any other categories, so I can't associate it with a parent category. And for the description, you can put in something if you want, but I'm just going to leave it blank and click update. Okay, so if I go back to categories, now I'll see family history as my default category now. And so it shows me my slug, and then it also shows me that I have one post associated with this category, which is the default post that I have on the Sandbox blog. Now to go to the page for that particular category, I can always go under here and click view. And as you see in the URL, I have my website domain name, and then I have a directory called category, and then under that I have family-history, and that corresponds directly with that category. So you could have links on your website that go to specific categories if you want to. And at the top here, it just says category archives, family history. So if I had more blog posts, it would list all of those blog posts out that are under the category of family history. So if I go back, I can create more categories just by going over here on the left. So I would just type the name of the category here. So let's say maybe I want a category about DNA. For the slug, you can actually keep the slug blank, I think, and I think it automatically creates it for you. So I can leave all these things blank and click add new category. So as you can see here, it created the category for me and it created the slug. So it basically just took DNA and just put it all in lowercase for me. Now, if I want to create a child category, like say for example for family history, I want one of my family names to be one of the children categories. So let's say I want to add Lawrence's as one of my family names. The slug I'm going to leave blank. And then for parent category, I can choose the two categories that I have available. So in this case, I want family history to be the parent category. And then I'll do add new category. So as you can see, Lawrence's is now a subcategory of family history. And so you can create as many categories as you want. Like I said, they are the overarching themes or topics that you're talking about in a particular blog post. So how would you associate a category with a blog post? Well, you would want to go to add new to create a new blog post. And then I'm just going to type in a very quick fake blog post title. And then if I had some content here, it would be there. But what you would want to do to add a category to a blog post is go to post and then go down to this category section. Now, it may not be open for you. If it's not, you just have to click on this little down arrow. It may take a little bit to load depending on how many categories you have, but it will eventually pop up. So from here, I can choose family history as the category. If you have multiple categories, like say I'm talking about DNA too, I could check that off. And if the child category is relevant, I could also check off that too. And if I go to preview, so I have my blog post title, I have whatever the content is, and then I have my categories at the bottom here. So theoretically, if a user were to click on any of these categories, they would be brought to that category page. And on that page, it would show any and all blog posts that are associated with those categories. So for example, if a user clicked on DNA, it would show them the DNA category page with all of the blog posts that talk about DNA related things. I'm going to close out of this. If I go back to my blog post, you can actually create new categories from this blog post creation page. Just click add new category, and then you can type in the name of it. So for this, I think I'm just going to type in a location. I could choose the parent category if that was relevant, and I'm just going to choose add new category. And so when I do that, it automatically puts it in this list, and it automatically checks it off too. So if this actually isn't relevant to this blog post, I would just uncheck it, and then I would go ahead and publish this blog post. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and we're going to talk about tags. So tags are more specific than categories. So like I said, this would be something that you may want to use if you're referencing a specific person, a specific event, a specific location, like a town or a city or something like that. These would be things that you want your users to be able to search for. So I can go to tags here. And it looks very similar to the create a categories page, but you would just type in the name of your tag. So I'm going to say I want to include a town here. So maybe I'll say Franklin. The slug, again, I can keep it blank if I want to. Description, I can put a description if I want or not. And you'll notice that there's no section for parent tags. So as I mentioned before, there's no hierarchical structure to tags. They're just a list of keywords, basically. So I'll click add new tag. And so I have my tag created here. And I don't have anything associated with it yet, so that's why I have my count of 0. Now maybe there are other tags that I want to incorporate. For example, some of the women in my family were midwives, so maybe I want to incorporate a tag called midwife if I'm talking about a particular person who was a midwife in my family. Now, if I want to associate these tags with a particular post, I can go back to my post. And then let's say I want to edit this one. And again, you want to go over here to the right of the screen. So we're just in the category section, so I'll kind of collapse that. You'll want to go to the tag section, and you get this blank that says add new tag. And so what you can do here is just search for the ones that you have. So I'll search for midwife. It may take a minute to come up, but once it does, I can go ahead and click on it. Now you can also use this box to create brand new tags as well. So maybe I want to include maybe hunting as a tag. Now since I haven't created a tag called hunting, it doesn't have this box or a suggestion box below it. So what I can do is click on the enter key, and it creates a new tag for me. Now since this blog post has been already published, I can do update, and it'll associate those tags with that post. So if I go to view post, you'll see I have my categories, DNA, family history, Lawrence's, and then my tags, hunting and midwife. Now if I go back, And then back to my dashboard and tags. You'll see that hunting is here, and both hunting and midwife have one post associated with them. So actually, if I click on this number, it'll bring me directly to the post that's associated with those things. And the screen is pretty nice. This is the all post screen. It shows you your blog post title, as well as the categories and tags that are associated with that blog post. Now, moving along, we're going to go ahead and go to plugins. So plugins are super helpful for extending the features in WordPress. So when you first install WordPress, you will have a few plugins that are set up by default, but you can always add new ones. And to do that, you can click Add New here, or Add New in the menu to the left. And what it'll show you will be the featured plugins that WordPress in general suggests that you use. But you can also go to popular as well as recommended. So one of the popular ones is Contact Form 7, which is one of the ones I mentioned earlier. So there's all kinds of different ones. There's also WP forms, word fence security, all kinds of stuff. Now, if you know the name of a plugin that you want to use and you don't see it on these screens, you can always search for it by using the search box on the right. So to do that, let's say I want to search for Medulla Gallery, which is one of the plugins I mentioned earlier. And so it's available here. Now, when I click on this plugin, there's a couple of things that I want to do. First, I want to check and see when it was last updated. When you have a WordPress.org website, there are constant updates to WordPress.org's dashboard, as well as the plugins that you use. So you just want to make sure that things have been updated recently, that a lot of people are using it, and that it's compatible with the latest version of WordPress. So here I can see it was last updated 2 months ago, which isn't too terrible. And you can see what WordPress version it requires, which one it's compatible with, which PHP version it's compatible with, which you would get that information from your hosting provider, as well as how many active installations it has. So it's not too terrible. There's a lot of people using it. It's up to date, and it's compatible with the latest version of WordPress. You can also see ratings and see how people have rated it and any additional reviews they've provided on this plugin. You can also see over here on the left any features. So if you don't know all the features that are available with the plugin, you can read them over here. There are also other tabs here that provide additional information about the plugin. So if this plugin looks good for you, it seems like it's gonna work for your needs, what you can do is click Install Now. And it'll typically take a minute depending on the size of the plugin. Once that happens, you're gonna wanna do Activate if you actively wanna use it. And if I go to Active here, it'll show that plugin as being available. Now with a lot of plugins, they will add things over here on the left, and they're just options for the settings for that particular plugin. So Medulla is a photo gallery plugin. So if I click on it, it'll show me the main page, but you can also view the settings here. So if there are any settings that you want to change, you can do that with this plugin. Now, WP Forms is another plugin that I mentioned. It's already installed on this kind of testing website, but if you go to Add New, it's super easy to set up a form. So you can choose the name of your form, and then you can choose a template. So let's say maybe I wanted to create a simple contact form. I'll just name it Contact. And then it basically already sets up the form for me. with these fields, but you can also use these fields here to add to the form. So if I wanted to have, say for example, like a multiple choice field, I could click and drag it and move it over here and edit it as I need to. So this is kind of just a teaser to show you guys what is possible with plugins. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this, and I'll just exit. Now there are a variety of ways in which you can customize your WordPress.org website. A couple of those ways include themes as well as widgets. Themes I'll show you guys real quick. Themes are basically pre-created website designs for your website or your blog. So these are some of the ones that were installed by default on this testing website, but you can always add new ones by clicking Add New Theme. And then this page looks pretty similar to the plugin screen, but what you can see are the featured themes as well as the popular ones. And you would basically install and activate them like you would a plugin. And so there are a variety of free WordPress themes, and there are some themes that you have to pay money for if you want more features. Widgets are another way that you can kind of customize your website or blog. Widgets are spaces where you can drag and drop information for your users to see on your website. So for example, here I have a widget section called Footer on my Sandbox website. And so that appears at the bottom somewhere here. So if I wanted to include any of these things, like maybe I want a list of my categories, or maybe I want my most recent post, I can drag those widgets here and they'll appear at the bottom of my website. So I'll click and drag categories, and you can provide it with a title or not if you want. I'll just name it blog topics and save. Now when I go back to my Sandbox website, I have to refresh the screen. But if I go down, at the very bottom I can see those categories. So it'll bring me directly to those pages. And so again, here's my category page for family history. All right, and that's just a very, very small sampling of some of the features in WordPress.org that you may want to use that you may not have utilized. If you guys like what you saw, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. And feel free to share with your friends, and definitely make sure to subscribe to my channel for more content and tutorials.